Okay, so the theme of this week is the Aveda of Nisyanis. It's Parshas Vayera. It's all about the life of Avram and the different tests that he went through, and especially the culmination, which is the test of Akedas Yitzchak. Um, and there's a general, rule that anything that happened in the life of the Avos, was not just that they were great tzaddikim and they lived these great lives. It's just a story that maybe we learned some kind of lesson from it. Um, I think a lot of people, our initial reaction when we hear, we learn these parashas, we learn about the Avos, we're like, well, they they're not really relevant to me. I mean, I'm not on the level of Abraham, I'm not on the level of Yitzchak, I'm not on the level of Yaakov. So yes, they went through that, and yes, everyone went through all the 10 tests, but what does that have to do with me? How is that relevant to me and my life on my level? And the rule is that myself is similar abundant, which means that any story that's mentioned in the Torah about the Avos, it's not just that this is what happened, thousands of years ago. It's that there are Avos, and we have within us the strengths of the Avos, and everything that they did, every story that's mentioned in the Torah, everything that happened to them is recorded for a reason. It's giving us the strength in our times when we face similar situations. We're drawing strength from the others. And when I say facing similar situations, every generation faces its own things, and everybody has their own individual trials and struggles and challenges, but we're still going back to the others and the example that they set and the teichas that they invested in future generations. I mean, these were all like breakthroughs that they were having in their connection to Hashem and in the way that they brought the Alikos down into the world, and the way that they transformed the world step by step, layer by layer, so that we should be able to come along in our Veda and take that a step further and a step further and a step further. So just to tie it in with the theme, of the classes, that we've been having the past 4 weeks, the theme is chaos connection, which means basically is Tayu to Tikkun, that the world of Tayu is the world of disconnect. It's the world where everything's fragmented, everything's like seems like it's its own thing. That's what Olam Haza is all about. In the more spiritual worlds, there's more like in spirituality, there's a lot more of like disintegration. But in the physical world, every single thing appears to be its own, existence for itself. And that's the idea of Tohu, that we're fragmented, we're disconnected from each other. And the idea of Tikkun is when we're able to come together and we're able to see how each of us plays our own unique individual role, but yet we're all part of the same entity. We're all serving Hashem. We're like one soul, one body, as explained in Tanya. So we have this idea of Tohu Tikkun, and over the course of different parashas, it manifests itself in different ways. So last week we learned about the idea of Lech Lecha, like going out of your own boundaries, even your own boundaries of Kedusha. But even when you have like your mindset is like, I want to serve Hashem, but if it's me that's serving Hashem, like this is what I want, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to accomplish, you're still your own Metzias. And Lech Lecha means go out of that, go out of your Metzias, and through going out of your Metzias, that's how you get to Lecha, your true Metzias. But the Veda of Yisanis is really even a level beyond that, because you could say, Lech Lecha, go out of your mitzvahs, go out of your seichel, go out of your understanding, your sense of yourself, and go towards a greater or higher or deeper purpose. But it's still a progression that I could see. Oh, well, now till now I was very self-centered. Till now I was very focused on myself. And now I'm focused on the whole. I'm focused on, my tafke, my shlichus in this world, and how I'm part of this greater entity. But it's still something that I can see the picture in my head. Now, Veda Nisyanis, on the other hand, is something where I completely do not and cannot see the full picture. It's something where I'm put in a situation where, to me, it seems impossible, illogical, irrational, makes no sense. I'm putting one foot in front of me, one foot in front of the other, but I don't know what direction I'm going in. I don't know what the end goal. There is no end in sight. I don't understand that. I don't see it. That is really the Avodah Nisyanis. When we're put in a situation where it completely overwhelms any kind of understanding that we have of what we're in, why we're in the situation, how we're supposed to deal with the situation, where are we going to get the coping tools? And when we're in those type of situations, that's the Avodah Nisayin. As long as we're in a situation where, kind of things are kind of routine, where, I'm going level by level, step by step, I can see the progression, I can see the steps I have to take, I can see the road in front of me. That's like regular Avodah. Avodah Nisayin is, I totally do not see anything ahead of me. I do not see any meaning, any purpose. I feel in a total state of chaos, a total state of void. And even like from the side of Kedusha, even from, you could say like, I'm doing my part, Hashem, and I'm expecting you to do your part, and I'm expecting you to help me along, fulfill your promises, and I'm not seeing that being fulfilled. I'm seeing challenges in the Avodah that you gave me. You promised me, you promised me Eretz Yisrael. You made me all these promises. You're going to be a great nation. And then we see challenges to that and struggles in that and things that do not make any sense. So that's where, those are the insights and lessons that we learn in Parshas Vayera. Now, before we go any further, we're right now, in a situation of Nisayin, a collective Nisayin for all of Klal Yisrael. We're all going through a very great hardship right now. And we're all, struggling and trying to focus and trying to figure out in what way we can contribute to the war effort, either on the physical battlefield, spiritual battlefield, Yaakov. But everybody, each of us is being impacted differently. There's the frontline soldiers or the family members of the soldiers who are on the front, where we have fears for their safety, or people who live in areas that are under threat or that are being, struck by rockets. And then, we have people we are living in a more relatively safe area, but we're trying to help support either physically or spiritually by sending supplies and money, aid, or davening for them, or doing different mitzvahs, or strengthening in our connection, to Yiddishkeit. So there's a Maimon Chazal Tzedakah Asakash Baruch Hu. Hashem did a favor for the Jewish people, that he scattered us among different nations, that when we're under attack in one place, those of us who are living in a different place and relatively safer, we can all contribute and we can help protect the Yidden that are endangered. And of course, even though with all that going on in Eretz Yisrael, our lives keep moving on, and whatever challenges or struggles that you had, Erev Simchas Torah, Mitzvah Simchas Torah, those problems are still there. Maybe we have a little bit of a different perspective on them, and maybe they seem less important, relatively speaking, but we still, have to deal with whatever it is that we were dealing with before, whether it was financial problems, health problems with our children. And then against the backdrop of everything that's happened in Eretz Yisrael, it may make us, feel inadequate. Like, why am I still getting annoyed and aggravated over like the laundry on the floor when you have everything else going on? And that may, make us feel like, why am I not coping better? There's so much bigger things going on, and I'm still coping with relatively smaller or minor things, but they still bother me, and I'm still bothered by them. So one thing that we have to keep in mind, a principle in the Avodah Nisayin is that the Nisayin is according to the person. The test is according to the person. So, for example, let's say you give a first grader a math test and you give a 12th grader a math test. So the 12th grader's math test would be very, very hard for the first grader, if not impossible. And the first grader's math test would be very easy for the 12th grader. But for each of them, the math test would be the appropriate level of difficulty. And same thing, like a person who's very good in math, two 12th graders, one is very good in math, will find the test easy. One is not so great in math, they'll find the test difficult. And then, of course, the person who's not good in math, they could be great in something else. So they're very challenged by a math test, but maybe the great math student is not so great at volleyball. So they're playing volleyball. For them that's a very difficult challenge. So everybody has their area where they're challenged in, an area where it's hard for them, it's an assignment for them, and what's an assignment for me is not an assignment for you. And that's why we can't compare each other's challenges, or even comparing ourselves to someone who's living in Eretz Yisrael right now, because you can't, one person's going through a hard time, and I say, okay, I feel so silly that this is bothering me, when that other person is going through a much harder time. Or I say, why can't I cope? Why am I not coping better than that other person, when what I'm dealing with isn't even that big of a deal? We can't compare, because Hashem knows your struggles, your matzah, your situation, your capabilities, and every one of us has, the challenge is meant for us. And at the same time, also, sometimes we go through relatively, peaceful stretches in our lives, and sometimes we have more challenging stretches in our lives. We talked about this Parshas Nayach, how some stages in your life, you're on that safe, cozy ship. On other stages, you're like in the open water and you're struggling, and somebody has to jump off the ship to save you. Sometimes you're the one jumping off the ship to save someone else. So we go through these different stages in our lives, or it could be like, we're here now to help and support the people in Eretz Yisrael. And sometimes the people in Eretz Yisrael are there to help and support us. So it's like that give and take, which is really the concept of Tayut Tikon, that whenever, we're in those difficult moments, when we feel ourselves less separated from other people, when we feel like I'm not the only person that's going through this, I'm not the only person that's ever struggled with this, and my struggles are not unique. I can gain strength from other people, and I can give strength to other people, and I gain from supporting them, and they gain from supporting me, and through that give and take, that's how we strengthen ourselves, and we overcome these nisayon. So when I feel like I'm alone in my nisayon, that's like that Tayu stage where I feel like I'm falling apart. I feel like I'm going to break up, I'm going to break down. But when I feel like I can join with other people, and I can express that this is hard for me, and I can share my worries and my fears and my struggle, we can support each other, and that gives all of us together the strength to overcome the nisayon. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, the more like we blame ourselves for how we're coping or how we're handling it, it's also draining energy that we actually need to cope with the situation. So anytime your mind starts going off into, why am I not handling this better? Why am I not feeling better? Why can't I cope? Why other people cope? I'm not coping as well as other people. Just recognize that those thoughts of self-blame are not coming from inside of Kedusha. They're draining you, they're going to weaken you, they're going to take away your energy. You need all your energy to cope with the situation, not to deal with, evaluating yourself, how you're dealing with it. You don't need to evaluate yourself. Nobody else has to evaluate you, how you're doing in your situation. It's enough to know, I'm going through a hard time right now, and I really need to focus on all my energy on dealing with whatever it is that I'm dealing with right now, but not on evaluating, am I doing a good job? Am I doing a bad job? So having said that, why do we have this Aved of Nisayon? So what is the purpose of it? Why does Hashem test us? Is Hashem always trying to see, do we really believe in him? Do we really love him? I mean, that's like a childish approach. Do I really love you? Do you really love me? We always have to prove ourselves to Hashem. Prove one way, proved another way. Abraham had to go through 10 tests, and that wasn't enough. And then he had to do the Kedas Yitzchak, and that was like the real test. So in Chassidus, there's 3 different meanings and explanations of the idea of the Aved of Nisayon. So one of them is the word nasai, which means to uplift, to raise us up. There's the word nes, like a flag, and there's also nes, a miracle. So those are the 3 different types or purposes of a nisayon, and I'm going to go through them. And I'm also going to learn a little bit of a mimer called Nasat L'Riyacha Nes L'Isnesis, which also goes through the idea of nisayonos and what they mean in our lives, and different types of nisayonos, and especially things that are relevant to the nisayon that we're facing right now as a people. So sometimes Hashem gives us the test because he wants to bring out our strength. Sometimes Hashem gives us a test because he wants to put our strengths on display like a flag to spur the rest of humanity to follow our example. And a trial of faith also challenges us to act in a miraculous manner against our nature. And when we act against our nature, this inspires Hashem to overturn the nature of the world and make miracles for us. In other words, when Hashem puts us to a test, it's not for his sake, it's for our own sake. And that's really important. And it's hard to really grasp this, especially when we're going through this. And we're going to, the Mimer is going to bring out this point more clearly that the tests that we are given are really for our sake. It's really that we can gain something that we will not be able to gain without the Veda Nisayanis. So let's go through each of these in detail. Nasai, to uplift. So sometimes when we go through an Nisayan, we need to call on deep reserves of strength and reveal our inner keiches. And these strengths would not come to the surface if you're just living our day-to-day, regular, comfortable existence. So why do some people go through these tests? Some people don't. Some people, objectively speaking, we say, wow, I can't believe you went through all that. I can't believe you lived through all that. Why does Hashem keep picking certain people or certain families and keep going through one challenge after the other? So we don't know. We're not really given a lot of warning. No one comes, knocking on your door and asks you to please sign up. If you want to enter the Olympics, you train for it and you enter into the Olympics, or if you want to go for, the Nobel Prize or something. But when it comes to Nisyanis, we're not signed up for it. We don't sign ourselves up for it. Hashem just chooses us randomly. But you can look at it in a way like that Hashem chose this particular Nisayan for me, that this particular situation, Hashem considered it a match for my neshama, my keiches. For whatever reason, Hashem felt that I would be up for this. So just knowing that Hashem did choose to put you in that situation in itself, gives you the strength and empowers you that, it wasn't my doing. We talked about that last week in Parshas Lech Lecha, that arguably everyone shouldn't have gone down to Mitzrayim, and look, he came out with Push Gadol. Sometimes we start blaming ourselves. Why I'm in the situation of Nisayan was my own, I messed up here, I messed up there. If I would have done this 5 years ago, if I would have done that 10 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. But the fact is, even if I'm in a difficult situation right now, even if I could look back and say I could have done things differently in the past, but the fact is, Hashem could have also made it come out, in a different way. Hashem could have made it that those mistakes that I made did not harm me in any way. So even if I feel like I had a hand in this, but if I'm in a difficult situation, it's still for the purpose of Nasai. It's going to lift me up. And when we're going through those like more peaceful, calm times, that's the time to, store up the energy, store up the calm energy that we can draw upon when we're going through difficult times. We can go back and, call upon those inner reserves. And sometimes, like we just spoke about, if I'm the one going through Nisayan, there could be other people that I could call on that, will help and will nurture, and I can help and nurture them, the other way around. Also, when we're going through Nisayan, we don't have to let it consume our whole life. I have a struggle in this area, and I can, there are times when I can put it to the side. Now, I'm in pain because of one particular aspect of my life. I'm not in pain in other aspects. There's even in like medicine and pain management, one of the techniques to help people who overcome chronic pain, we're talking about people who have chronic, back pain or headaches or whatever kind of pain that they've done all the whole workup, they didn't find anything wrong, and they still keep getting this chronic pain. One of the ways to help them is to take a less focus on the part that's hurting. So, okay, I have pain in my right knee. What about pain in my left knee? Okay, my left knee feels okay. What about my toes? What about my feet? What about my thighs? What about my back? Go through the rest of the body that's not in pain and try to feel those parts, try to feel the comfort in the parts of the body that are not hurting. If my body's in pain, maybe I can listen to music, not to take my mind off the pain so much, but that even while I'm experiencing the pain, I can still experience pleasure in other areas of my life. So I have a big bill to pay and I don't know how I'm going to pay it, and it's worrying me and it's bothering me. So that, yes, it's a problem and it's something that I'm dealing with, but there's still many, many, many other things in my life that there besides for that big bill. So I don't have to let that big bill that I don't know how to pay, I don't have to let it consume my whole life. So that's one way that, yes, the Nisayan is affecting me. It's affecting a certain part of my life, but it doesn't have, I don't have to let it affect every single life. Sometimes we're so consumed with a certain struggle that soon my marriage is affected, and my relationship with my kids is affected, and I can't focus on my jobs. Now my job is affected, and every other part of my life gets sucked in and drawn in. So that's something we can try to avoid by being able to put the Nisayan in its proper proportion, in its proper place. I'm not saying it's easy, but like sometimes doing the thing that seems more difficult makes the rest of our life easier. It's a lot easier when we can deal with one problem in one area than when that problem takes over our whole life and consumes everything. So even though it may be hard, it may be hard to distract or divert attention from that problem in the moment, it's still going to be easier than having to deal with my whole entire life being flipped upside down because of this insight. Going into the second meaning of Nisayan, which is a flag. Sometimes Hashem wants to put your strengths on display, to stir the rest of humanity, to say, look at the Jewish people, look at Bnei Israel. And we're saying, hey, I don't want this. I'm not looking to be anybody's exemplar. I'm not looking to be anybody's inspiration for the day. I just want to get through life. I just want to, exist. I want to, be able to sleep at night. But that's the idea of Nisayan. We aren't asked our opinion. We're put in certain situations and we have to deal with it the way it is. So sometimes, in within the Nisayan that we're in now, everybody's looking, how are the Jewish people reacting to this? What are we doing? And that's why it's so important to, keep our minds clear and to keep focused on doing our Aveda in this time, now that we have the world's eyes upon us. This is all happening in the age of social media where images get shared all over the world very, very quickly, very instantly. And when we, get together and learn and daven and add in mitzvah, it's like the whole world's noticing. The whole world notices our reaction. The whole world sees the way that we are addressing this Nisayan. And whether they will acknowledge it or not, but the fact that it's playing out in such a public way, that this is the way that we handle Nisayan, this is the way we handle trials, this is the way we handle attacks, challenges. This is something that awakens all of humanity. It shows people an example. It demonstrates to everybody that this is what Am Yisrael is all about. And I know, like anyone who's on social media, which not that I'm recommending it, there's a lot of the negative images and horrible things that people say and horrible things that we thought everyone's gonna sympathize, and we thought that everyone's gonna support us after this, and we see that they're coming out the same old attacks against Israel and blaming us for everything. And it's very easy to get sucked in and try to like argue back and forth. But when we realize like this is our opportunity to be like that Nisos to put ourselves on display, as we understand that this Nisayan, this isn't against the terrorists, even though we're here to destroy the terrorists, but it's here to awaken the Jewish people. There's a Sayrist here, and we're all being awakened to embrace who we are as Jews and to focus on that and not on going into the back and forth and defensiveness with the people that are against us. Now the third meaning of Nes is idea of miracles. That point that I understand this brings out the we go above and beyond our nature, and then in turn Hashem goes above and beyond his nature. So it's bringing out the power of the supernatural. So I want to learn a little bit of this Maimer which was said by the Rabban Yud Beis Tammuz, which, as we know, is the time, the Chag Gula of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And we know that the Frierdiker Rebbe lived through communism. He lived through terrible oppression. He was imprisoned. He was sentenced to death. And he made a very firm commitment, and we can read this all in Rishimas HaMaiser, which is printed in Likutei Berm, his whole description of his experiences while he was in prison, that he made up his mind very firmly that he is going to completely ignore the communists. He's completely going to treat them like they're powerless, and he's not going to bend to them in any way. And because he refused to bend to them, he was injured. He was thrown down a staircase. It was like, in a way, you could say things. He made things worse for himself by refusing to bend. But that decision to refuse to bend is what enabled the Yidden in Russia to survive for another 70 years and keep Yiddishkeit alive until the fall of communism. And then, the Hasidim were able to come back and rebuild. It was all from the Frierdiker Rebbe's very strong commitment that this is non-existent. Like, they have no power over me. We know the Frierdiker Rebbe made that famous declaration, when he was in the train station in Kostroma after being exiled on Gimel Tammuz. He said it was only our bodies that were given over into Gullus, but not our souls. So anything that has to do with their souls, no power in the world can destroy us. No power in the world has any say over anything to do with Torah and mitzvahs. Looking at the current situation, with our enemy is what? It's Hamas, it's terrorism, it's, who exactly is our enemy? So we can look at it like, they're terrorists and we have to fear them and we're fighting against them. But if we take the approach that our enemy here really has no power over us whatsoever, this is an awakening for all of us. It's a time for us to bring out our strengths, bring out our pride as Yidden, and gather together. And even Yidden who, the Frierdiker Rebbe also said, after the Gula of Yud Tammuz, it's anyone Hashem Yisrael Yichuna, anyone that has the name Jew. That means even people that don't necessarily identify so much with their Judaism, but they know that they're Jewish. It was a chagula for them. So now we have a lot of people, coming out that maybe didn't identify so strongly with their Jewishness, but they know that they're Jews and they know that they're part of the Jewish people. And all of a sudden, Jewish people are under attack and all over the world, and we're seeing all this hatred coming out. Now all of a sudden, all those people, wait, I'm Jewish. What does it mean to be Jewish? Like, why am I hated? And what does it mean? Like, the Judaism never really meant much to them. It was never taught to them, never explained to them. And now in this Sarah, now all of a sudden, everybody wants to know, what does it mean? What can I do? And that's our role over here, is to teach them and show them and explain to them and everybody on their level that this is an opportunity for us. This is an opportunity for us to grow and to embrace our Judaism. Okay, so I'm back inside the Mimer. So the whole idea of the Akedah, Akedas Yitzchak, is that Avraham Avinu was asked to do something that was impossible. He was asked to do the impossible. He had 10 tests. They're not explicitly listed in the Torah what his 10 tests were. We know he went through 10 tests, and then the last one was Akedah, and it's the only place where it says Hashem Nisas Abraham, Hashem tested. So there's different, opinions. Which one was tested? Was the Kivshan Aish, or smashing the idols of his father, or going out of Israel and being, Sarah being taken? There was a lot of, there's different opinions. So he had the 10 tests, but they're not like explicit in the Torah. This was the first one where it says explicitly Hashem Nisas Abraham. Because this was the test that was like the culmination of all of them, that he was asked to do something that was really logically impossible, really something that did not make any sense, that did not fit in with anything that he believed, or that he was teaching the whole world. And some people would ask, was Avraham, was he in his right mind when he did this, when he took Yitzchak to the Akedah? And the Torah goes into a lot of detail to show that he was in his right mind. First of all, that he planned it. He took the wood, and he took the knife, and he took the rope, and everything was organized. So he was clear thinking. He took not only Yitzchak, but also Yishmael and Eliezer. And then he told them to stay back and he's going to just go with Yitzchak. They were wandering for 3 days. So he had 3 days to kind of process and think whether he really wanted to do this. So all of these details that the Torah tells us shows us that Avram was very much in his right mind. We also have to understand that Avram was speaking to Hashem his whole life. He was 75 years old, and Hashem said to him, Lachvan. Hashem appeared to him other times after that, and he appeared to him by the Bris Bein Sarim, and to tell him to do a bris, and that he's promising Yitzchak. So Avram had spoken to Hashem a number of times. It's not like this is the first time Hashem ever came to him and saying, go shacht your son, and then you could think, was he in his right mind? Was he crazy? This is the same Hashem that had spoken to him many times in the past. So Avram knew that he was speaking to Hashem. He knew that this was the same Hashem that was always there, that was always giving him guidance. So very much he was, in his right mind, and he knew exactly what he was doing. So he was really put in this impossible position because Hashem had promised him, there's going to be a great nation coming out of you, and he completely believed in Hashem's promise. And now Hashem's asking him to shacht his son. So a completely logically contradictory, does not make any sense. And yet, this was the command of Hashem. This is what Hashem told him to do. So he's going to do it, and he's just going to go. And he had obstacles in the way. The Midrashim tell us that there was water, and he just kept walking through the water, and it came up to his neck. He kept going. Then it came up to his nostrils, and he said to Hashem, the waters are, up to my nose. I can't breathe anymore. And then the waters went away. So no matter what obstacle, he just kept on going towards the Akedah. So all of this was to test Avram. So this is really where we get to like a true Nisayon. It's not just, I'm going to do a mitzvah and I have some difficulties in the way. Like I want to give tzedakah, but I don't really have, I don't really have money. Or, kosher food is expensive. It's something that's just logically impossible. Something that I believe one thing, I believe another thing, and my mind is just shutting down completely. I cannot fathom what I'm doing in this situation. And really throughout, Jewish history, we've been called on, not just once and not just twice, but many, 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 many times to make these impossible choices, make these impossible decisions to raise our children as Yidden and pass along to them this passion and this power of that we have from Avram Avinu, that no matter what circumstances we're in, we're going to raise our children as Jews. We're going to pass it down. We're going to do bris milah. We're going to keep Shabbos. We're going to keep kosher. And this is not to say that no one was ever nechshel in a Nisayon, and people did leave Yiddishkeit, but everybody on their level comes to a point where, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, everyone comes to a point where they feel like if I cross this line, my connection to Hashem will be broken, and therefore I cannot cross this line. Where that line is going to be different for every person. And that's part of what the Alter was teaching us in Tanya, that instead of waiting till you're at that extreme point, to be able to experience that even on lesser, less major decisions, less critical life and death type of decisions, even in smaller areas, we can draw upon that koyach. But this is what Avram gave over to us, that even when we're facing something that seems so impossible, something that so beyond logic, so beyond our understanding, so above my head, above my capabilities, it was instilled in us in Avram through passing that test. That's why Hashem said, Kachna es bincha, please take your son, because if you don't pass this Nisayon, then all the other ones would not have been worth it. This was like the final frontier. So why was it so important for him to pass this test? And it goes back to the transformation from Tohu to Tikkun that we talked about. That the neshama comes into the world in order to be misak in the world. The neshama does not come into the world in order to be misak in itself. This is a principle that's taught in Chassidus many times. The neshama itself is perfect. The neshama itself, before it came into the world, was the highest levels of Gan Eden. It was connected to Hashem, it does not need anything. It did not need to leave Shemayim in order to come down into a body. It has no desire to come into a body. It has no need to come into a body. But Hashem wants the neshama to come into the body in order to make the world, in order to bring tikkun to the world, in order that we should take the lowest of the low and elevate them to Hashem, in order to gather in all the different sparks, all the different parts of creation, all the different elements of creation, and be able to bring out the oneness of Hashem in every single detail of creation. So that's why we get scattered all over. We get scattered into all these places. We get put into all these different situations because we have to go into that area and we have to elevate that area. So this is the idea of Nisayan. So in this mimer explains that, there's the Veda of Torah Mitzvahs, which is really more on the level of our seichel and our midas. Like I can learn and I can understand, and I learn the halachos or Shabbos or kashos, and I can learn all about Shabbos and mitzvah say, this is muktzah, and there's the shamar and the zachar. So keeping all the lam tes malachos, and there's also like the zachar, the making kiddush and making a beautiful Shabbos meal and einik Shabbos. Davening action on Shabbos. So I can really learn and delve and I can go as deep as I want, and I can choose how exactly I'm going to observe Shabbos, like which areas am I really going to make beautiful, how much am I going to invest in different aspects, cooking the food, baking the challah, whatever it is. There's a lot of different areas. We all do it in our own way, but it's all al pi tamadah. Since I'm investing myself intellectually, emotionally into doing these mitzvahs. And that's how I elevate, I elevate the flour and the eggs that go into baking the challah, and I elevate the chicken, and I elevate the wine and everything, my Shabbos table, I'm elevating that. That's one level. There's also an Veda of the Mrs. Leisa say, so something like a not kosher animal, so by not eating it, it's being elevated to Kedusha. But the not kosher animal, even though it's not kosher to be eaten, that doesn't mean that its whole purpose in creation is just to be menaged to Kedusha. Like that animal, let's say it's a dog. Can I say that the only reason for a dog to exist is to be menaged to Kedusha? Maybe a dog can serve a useful purpose in some ways. I can't eat it, but it could be that the dog serves other useful purposes. So just because something is not kosher or is tamei or aser does not mean that its whole purpose in the world is only to oppose kedusha. When we come to avodah b'sayit, that is something that its whole existence, it has no other use in the world other than to oppose kedusha, other than to do harm, other than to create an assignment for us. So for example, Hamas, does Hamas do anything, have any constructive purpose in existence? There's no purpose. They have nothing positive to add to the world, only to destroy. And that's why the Avodah B'Nisayan is to reveal how anything in the world that opposes Kedusha has no real mitzias. It has no real existence. If I'm not eating the not kosher food. So I go to the supermarket and I take, only put the kosher food in my cart and I leave over the rest. It doesn't mean that all that other food that doesn't have a hechsher, it needs to be destroyed. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's kosher. The non-Jew can eat it. It's okay for certain people. It's just not kosher for me. It's not that it's bad in and of itself. So the things that are not kosher, I can't elevate to Kedusha through eating it, but it can still, by me not eating it, I'm elevating it in that way. But the Avodah B'Nisayan is something that is so evil, so dark, that it has no purpose of its own. It's only to bring out in me those strengths, the strengths that we talked about, the strength of the Yechidah Shabbat, the ultimate powers of my neshama, to reach deep, the deepest part of my neshama, and to bring out that I am a Yid, I am one with Hashem, and there's nothing else in the world that exists besides my connection to Hashem. And this is an opportunity for every single Yid in the world. Every single Yid, no matter who they are, where they are, whether they're learned, not learned, It's an opportunity for them to bring out that level of Mesiras Nefesh, that level of connection to Hashem that goes above and beyond anything. It's not by, going online and arguing with pro-Hamas or going to counter protests. That's not how we fight such an evil. That's not how we fight this terror. It's only by reaching into ourselves, reaching into the level that's completely beyond the world, completely beyond the nature of the world, and bringing out my absolute connection to Hashem, and in which they have no power at all. And when we can reach into that, then that power dissipates. The power of Hamas, the power of whatever enemy, it dissipates, it disappears. They have no strength. They have nothing of their own. And this is the Avodah specifically of our generation, the last generation before Mashiach. That the darkness of the world is very, very great, and our Avodah is Mesiras Nefesh. I'm reading now from the Maimar. It's explained in the Maimar that Moshe was an Anav more than any other person in the whole world, and the Ikar was the main reason that he was such a big Anav was because of our generation, that we have such spiritual darkness, and yet we stand with a takeoff, we stand with tremendous strength, we learn Torah, we fulfill Torah with Mesiras Nefesh. So this is what caused Moshe Rabbeinu by Zechar to feel down on himself. He felt a little down on himself looking at our generation. And even now, compare me, we always say, okay, I can't compare to, Holocaust, or communism. But even us in our life right now, we are now in a situation of Mesiras Nefesh. We are in a situation where we have to completely put everything else on the side, all logic. When you look at what's going on in Gaza, like what is the logic? We're not going to be able to bring back the people that were killed. Are we going to be able to destroy them completely? Like, what's going to happen? Is the rest of the world, are they going to start protesting? What's going to be? So my mind, logically, it's just a situation where we feel completely lost. We feel like there's no sense to it. And maybe all along, we've lived relatively calm, comfortable. We weren't expecting this big jolt to happen. And the Yetzer Hara is very clever, and he's able to get into our heads, and he knows each person exactly which thought is going to dray up the most, and really get you to lose yourself, lose your strength, lose your nerve in whatever area it is. We're all different. We all have our areas, but the Yetzer Hara is very clever at what he does. But when we are able to withstand all these mistakes and continue to do our Avodah, we're able to stand up to Yetzer Hara, we're able to stand up to all the enemies of the Yidden. So through this, it's mevatel, we're nullifying the existence of evil. And not only this, but even the strengths that oppose the Yidden, gam oivav yashlim itay, our enemies will make peace with us. And the Avodah of Ichus Mashiach, the fact that this is the way that's demanded of us is a proof that we are given these keiches, because Hashem only demands, I'm not asking according to my strength, I'm asking according to your strength. So that means that we are given the kayach to each and every one of us to awaken this deep inner strength from the Etzem Neshama, and that this strength that we're able to awaken in ourselves to overcome our challenge right now in this moment, it will also affect our mind and our heart and our machshava d'ramaisa, that we should all be given over to Hashem and to the Torah. So let's just summarize this. So this is a time for all of us, that we're all struggling with all our nisayness. We're also struggling with our individual nisayness. This is a time for all of us to draw strength from one another, to give strength to one another. That no matter what area you are struggling with right now, Hashem is with you, and we are all together. We're all giving strength to each other. And with the culmination of when all of us are able to draw out all our strengths, it says, the Karen is like the horn, the pride. So the pride of the Rishayim will be shattered, and and our pride will be raised up. So now is the time for us to raise ourselves up, to take pride in who we are as Yidden, to draw out our deep, deep kaiches. And this is how we're going to meet the challenges of the moment. And very, very soon, we'll see the scholars of the Rav Mashiach, and all the Yidden Eretz Yisrael will be safe, and we'll all come home to Yerushalayim. If anyone would like to share any thoughts or comments, happy to hear. Okay, thank you so much for joining, and have a very good night.